In the latest installment of Culture Wars here on Morning Kick Around, we are still reeling from the news that dropped on Thursday afternoon. USL, the American Second and Third Division, I think a league company, shall we say, announces a Division One team is in the works. And to talk about it,
League.
we are welcomed by USL expert John Morrissey from USLTactics.com. Thank you for joining us here in quite the moment here on Friday morning.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had like more requests to come talk to people about a news story out of the USL. So I think that's kind of evidence of this is a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, it means again. It means you're the go-to guy, which is incredible. Because I'm glad for that, John. I definitely encourage people to go to USL Tactics to read everything that John is putting out. Follow him on all social media in this moment because this look. I'm a cynic. I don't know, John, if you've seen me express my opinion on this. It's going to be a more show me rather than tell me thing. As somebody who's watched leagues come and go and seen the soccer wars, but I'm a veteran, right? I'm a veteran of covering the soccer wars. But it still means something when an organization that has done as much work and built as much as USL makes a statement like this. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts, the things that you broke down at your website, give us your initial reaction to this news and maybe give us your thoughts as to why USL thinks it's important to have a D1 league.
Yeah, I mean, kind of taking that second question first. If you're the USL, there's a certain cap on how big your clubs can grow, the level of success they can enjoy with that kind of D2 moniker. And with that comes the minor league label. American sports fans aren't used to supporting minor leagues. When you think about minor league, it is weird promotions, it's your AAA baseball team. It's something that you don't necessarily take seriously. And so if you're the USL and you've got a group of 12 to 14 clubs that are trying to push higher, that are trying to cement their status, become profitable, build stadium projects, it makes sense to let those teams try to step up, try to take that leap and become a little bit more relevant in the sporting scene. If that's the aspiration, I'm on board. If the USL truly sees that as, okay, this is the springboard to Pro Rel, this is the springboard to directly competing with MLS, that feels like a fool's errand. And I think that's where the hesitation comes in from my side of things.
So I'm actually curious. Just as the news released, came out an athletic article yesterday. Paul Tenorio had Commissioner Paul McDonough on there. Did this take you by surprise, like when it hit your news feed, or did you kind of think this was in the works?
There've certainly been whispers about this for a couple of years at this point, but to just have it drop on a normal old Thursday morning and say, we're doing it, definitely was a shock for me. Like, obviously, the USL has been planning, but to make it real, to have the president out there saying, we're doing it, really surprising to see.
Yeah. Okay. So, and again, I think we broke down a little bit of sort of how much promotion and relegation is part of this story, John. And we could do that with you, and I certainly think that you would be able to give us plenty of insight there. But I do want to focus on what you wrote on your website as you kind of dived into how do you build a D1 league if you are USL. And obviously they have the USL Championship with right now sanctioned as a second division league in the country. And I guess what we need to do as I scroll through your piece here, everybody go to usltactics.com, subscribe, do everything to support John.
There you go.
So I think PLS, right? We have to talk about the leagues, the professional league standards. They are so critical to whether or not USL can pull this off. So right there, give us your writing on those standards, how they apply, and maybe what USL is looking at in trying to populate a 12 and then eventually 14 team league.
I mean, as you're seeing on screen, kind of four big boxes to check. In order of like difficulty to get there, that 12 to 14 number, easy to do. The USL has more than 30 some odd teams that they could potentially draw from. Not a problem. Same thing with the 3 time zones. Like there's enough geographic spread across the league where it's not going to be problematic. Once you get into the metro population question, and that's kind of tied in with the stadium issue as well, where 75% of the clubs in this league need to be located in a metro with more than 1 million people. And every single stadium that the USL is playing in needs to exceed 15,000 seats in capacity. Once you start kind of exploring the permutations of, okay, this stadium works or this stadium can be expanded, but this team plays in a city with 700,000 people, it becomes a little bit trickier to figure it out. At the end of the day, there is not a single USL club that is playing in a self-owned, soccer-specific stadium that meets D1 capacity requirements. That's a massive problem to make this happen. Now, when you look at the press release, you look at the Athletic article, it's clear that the USL has been in conversations with US Soccer. And we've seen in the past when the USL jumped from D3 to D2 back in the mid 2010s, US Soccer was willing to give the league waivers and say,
Yes.
we get it, you're working towards the capacity thing. We'll give you a couple of years to make that transition. You have to think that that's going to be the situation again come 2027 or 2028, because it's simply impossible for the league to pull this off to get those stadiums expanded like they need to within that timeline. Like, it is literally an impossibility logistically.
Well, so let me ask you. I mean, again, this all makes sense. You're working from a list of clubs that USL already has, and again, you know, they most of these clubs check at least one of the boxes you need to check for PLS. But how much do you think this is a play to attract new investment in different cities, starting from zero? Now, obviously, you still have to build stadiums, and I don't know how you do that on the timeline we talked about, John, but there are some places in America that don't have teams, and you know, this has been the MLS move. Let's go find some really wealthy people to put a team in San Diego or whatever. So is USL thinking there are some 1+ million markets out there that we can find new people to invest in our league?
The thing about the markets is that they're fairly saturated at this point. There are only about 50 markets that kind of meet that minimum. So when you consider, and I've not even got USL League One listed there, but if you consider what cities are covered in League One, covered in the championship, and then MLS, you're pretty much filled. And MLS Next Pro is already going into Cleveland. They are aiming at other markets that could fit the bill. So that's competition on the bottom end. It makes
it's competition. You're not saying that USL can't go into those markets. It's just that we'd have competition in those markets because, again, there are no concerns because they're two different leagues. There are no concerns about territorial rights. It's just within the leagues that they would have those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about like a city like Chattanooga, where Next Pro has Chattanooga FC. That's the community club, does quite well for themselves. The USL has the Chattanooga Red Wolves, who are, let's be real, poorly run, don't draw many fans. They're losing the battle in that city. And you don't want to just wantonly go into a market to meet the numbers if you don't have the proper infrastructure. And so I think that's why the D1 thing can maybe, like you're saying, be a draw for better ownership groups. I think a thing that kind of went under the radar yesterday, as soon as the news broke that USL was doing this, the expansion effort in Jacksonville made it very clear that they are looking towards a 15,000 seat stadium. We've not seen a number announced for the announced group that's coming to Dallas for the USL, but you got to think they're planning towards 15,000. So I think it's raising the bar for the set of teams that are already coming in. And you know, there are teams in the works right now that we don't know about yet that are going to follow that same path.
Yeah, this comes down to a lot of like the pro league standards. If for those that don't know, there's like, you know, the pretty stringent requirements on the metro area and the stadium requirements and all that. And obviously guidelines are important, but to many they seem more prohibitive than ensuring quality in the ownership and the markets or the cities that the teams are located in. Do you think that this might indicate there might be a revision of the USSF's pro league standards, or there may be like a mass waiver situation coming?
It's a good question. I mean, we just saw that big lawsuit with the NASL where US Soccer pretty stringently defended the existence of the pro league standards. But when you think about why they went into effect in the first place, it was kind of this setting the floor, assuring stability thing, preventing a league like the NASL from kind of just wrecking shop without real intention behind it. Given that the USL is talking to US Soccer, has earned their trust over the course of decades of operation, moving up the pyramid, I think that improves the argument for the waivers, possibly reform to the PLS. But I think US Soccer wants that kind of safeguard in place just in case.
I think, okay, one thing that's not included here when we talk about the PLS, and this is just like from a league organization standpoint, you've broken it down, is the net worth requirement for ownership groups, right? And it's something I haven't even brought into this conversation yet, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it, John, because I just had a back and forth with Peter Wilt on Blue Sky a couple of weeks ago around the NASL lawsuit. His concern, or his big issue, is we should allow for there to be clubs that are community owned. We can have socios the way that they do in Spain, 50+1 the way that they do in Germany. Do you think that there's anything on the table for that? Because you can argue, like, do you need to be in 3 time zones? Do you need to have 15,000 seat stadiums across the entire league, et cetera, et cetera? Do you need to have the metropolitan area thing? Like that seems fairly arbitrary. If you have a hot soccer market that has 500,000 people, they can put 15,000 in a stadium. You don't need 1 million plus. But in terms of how ownership is structured, those are pretty big barriers for anybody entering American soccer.
No doubt about it. And when you look at kind of the requirements for ownership, it's like 70 million for the group at D1. You need a principal owner that's at the 40 million net worth. In the grand scope of things in the United States, that's not that much money. Like, to us three, sure, that's life-changing, but there are a lot of business people who just have that to throw around. And I think you've seen in the championship already, yes, the Oakland Roots and Orange County SC aren't fan-owned, but they've opened up the possibility of fan investment into the teams. I think if we could get to that hybrid model as a start, that would be terrific. I don't know if U.S. Soccer would ever allow for full fan ownership, and I think that's a shame. But again, it's about the health, it's about the continued operation of these clubs. So you get it, even if it is a little bit disappointing to see kind of the limitations on the model.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me turn us to, again, the the third rail of American soccer, and such it has been for many, many years, and ask about ProRel. And do you think that is a legitimate part of this plan? This we want to have a D1 because it's going to be at the top end of our internal USL promotion and relegation system.
I think in a vacuum, the USL just doing D1 without ProRel doesn't really move the needle. Maybe it'll get them a few more broadcasting dollars. Maybe it's a little bit better to draw players in from overseas, but it's not changing anybody's mind or drawing in considerable amounts of new fans. ProRel, they've been dangling the carrot for 8 to 10 years at this point publicly. That feels like the thing that potentially could be a game changer. Could it destabilize the entire pyramid? Of course it could. There's a real chance it's kind of you're committing seppuku with that. But it feels like the one change that could really make a dent in the mind of kind of the neutral fan who's not paying attention to the USL right now. Will it happen? That depends a lot on the ownership groups. I've heard noise that there is kind of increasing positivity about it behind the scenes, but we've been hearing that same kind of language for 8 to 10 years as well. So it makes sense as a next step, but I am a little bit bearish on the actual implementation happening.
We shall see. We shall see. We shall see. I think we'll have to figure out what your soccer camouflage in if you're going to be on the front lines of the soccer war here, John. You're going to get some face.
Just to be clear, John, myself, having been a veteran, we are covering, we are media, we are press, we are not involved in the fighting. Okay, that's not what we're made for, right, John? Are we good? Are we good? Yeah.
It's like a wartime reporter. You're kind of integrated with the troops, but you're just there to talk about it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna be the guy who took all the photos during the Civil War and got famous. I can't remember his name. Matthew something. Yeah, there you go, Matthew Brady. Thank you. See, there we go. We're on the same page.
He is John Morrissey. His website is usltactics.com. Check his stuff out, and I'm sure there will be much more to follow up on this story as USL makes a move at a Division I league. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around, sir.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Viewer, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Morning Kick Around on youtube.com. Help support this show. We will dig into more soccer districts across the country. We will be tapping into those experts in the know, such as John, and get them on the show. and then just expand this and make this a sustainable and growing show, wanting to be one of the center points of the American soccer conversation as we get into these heady times of World Cups and competing Division I teams.
Follow along as Robert Kerr gets a full education in modern MLS. It's been a while since he's paid real close attention. So let's go. Let's get Rob seriously involved in MLS in 2025.
Yeah, I think Summer Soccer Central will be a segment. We bring you along in the amateur summer soccer, and what was it, Virginia Dream or one of those teams? You'll get into one of those.
Yeah,
and then,
we'll see. Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
And then we'll go for a full, was it a 10-month season of Major League Soccer?
Oh, it's too much, Rob. You can't handle it. Your life is too busy. 10 months is just, you can't. Come on, man. Make the commitment. Let's go.
All right, we'll take the plunge together. How about that? You, me, the viewers, hold hands and take the plunge into Major League Soccer starting next week. Oh my goodness, my goodness.